Okay folks, so I just wanted to share something I've been up to in the last fortnight or so, which is using Claude Code in order to vibe code some Max externals. And I've built my own Max externals previously, but it's just taken a lot of time to get the coding side of things just right, get all the infrastructure right around the externals and around the way that the Max SDK does things. And using a tool like Claude, I feel like makes a lot of sense in this case, and it's been a lot of fun and really enlightening as well. So I wanted to show you my workflow for this and build an external here, build a fresh one. So in my GitHub, you can kind of see I've got quite a few repos now that are kind of Max externals. So for example, yesterday I made a exponential decay and an SSM filter emulation and a sort of just conditional distortion VCA, also working on a physics LFO, so lots of different kinds of externals, and I'll make a separate video that kind of goes through some of those. But in all cases, I'm relying on the Max SDK, which you can find here just from the Cycling 74 GitHub, and I've just downloaded that into my onto my computer. And I think the important thing here is that I've kind of spent a little bit of time with Claude to develop a Claude.md, and every time I build an external, I ask Claude if it learned anything from that process, and then it's just filling out and adding things to this Claude.md. So this Claude.md is just sitting inside of the main folder of the Max SDK locally. You can see it's got just lots of things, lots of little troubleshooting things that Claude ran into, lots of issues. So, for example, one thing that was kind of surprising that it took a while for Claude to get right was having inlets that take floats, signals, and integers at the same time for the one inlet. And so that's one thing that took a while to get right. And there's just lots of little issues that it's kind of, whenever it's troubleshooted it through building an object, it's added it to this Claude.md. Now, due to token length and context, we've had to compact this file a little bit, so I've had Claude's help with that as well. So I thought, let's go ahead and build something. Usually my process for this is going to be first develop a prompt in Opus, and then save that prompt and work from that prompt locally on the terminal. So here, this is my prompt for today. I haven't built this external yet, so it'll be interesting to see how this turns out. Hi Opus, can you create a prompt for Claude Code Sonnet that will do the following? This is assuming general knowledge of the Max SDK. So create an audio rate Max external. This external will be an oscillator called cycle.fold. The main function is to be an oscillator within a wide frequency range with 3 inlets and 1 outlet. The first inlet, which should be a float, int, or a signal, should take a frequency value. The second inlet, which is a float or a signal with a range of 0 to 1, is the wave folding amount. And 0 would mean a pure sine wave, 1 will mean a completely folded vertical waveform. The third inlet, which is also a float or a signal, but the range should be -1 to +1, is the wave warping amount, which is going to stretch and deform the wave horizontally. So 0 is a symmetrical waveform, -1 is the waveform squished towards the left, and 1 is the waveform squished towards the right. Please provide an in-depth set of instructions to Sonnet to achieve this outcome, including example structures and or functions. So we'll see what Opus gives us. In the meantime, let's just start up a terminal window. And what I'm going to do, and you can see as part of my Claude.md, I've got an area here called session prompt, and so it says for the current session, please see the document name session prompt.md. And so this is in general information about the Max SDK, and then in a moment we'll put session prompt.md the information in here. And see, Claude has given it to us just as sort of text like this, but I'm just going to say, can you provide this as a markdown file? That'll just give us an artifact that we can either copy or download. And to be honest, let's just download it, and we'll just replace that existing session prompt.md, which is empty at the moment. And so I find that in general, Opus comes up with better plans of how to achieve these kind of ideas. Even though these things aren't like that complex, Sonnet tends to, if it doesn't have a plan in place, Sonnet, I feel like, tends to either over-engineer things or overthink things a little bit, and the path to an outcome is not as efficient as it could be with Opus. That's just my sense. Maybe you've got a different experience with that. And because I've got just the lowest paid tier of Claude, that means that I can only use Sonnet from the terminal. So I'm just going to save it in here into my Max SDK folder as session prompt.md. And then in terminal, what we can do is just cd into the Max SDK. Note that I've got this folder in my Max 8 folder, but I also have all of these items referenced as in my file paths for Max 9. So later on we can test in both Max 8 and Max 9 if we need to. Okay, so now that we've CD'd into that, let's launch Claude. And see, I've got this size warning here for my Claude.md, so I might split apart that Claude.md file. This is just a recent warning that I've had. Might have to compact it and split it apart. You can see there's an extended README file as well that's got kind of more case examples and more ideas about different externals that I've built with Claude in it that Claude's created. Now I don't want to edit our existing Claude.md. We'll come back to that. Instead, focus on. See, it didn't pick up on the session prompt, did it? And what I'm going to do is shift tab into planning mode so that Sonnet can read this file fully and then just come up with a plan. Okay, so then we can have auto accept on. You know what? Let us let's see if Sonnet has any improvements. And see, it's just checking existing externals, including ones that have been provided by cycling and ones that I've made as well. And now it's come up with a plan. And now we've just got auto accept on, just to implement that plan. And let's just go have a look. So usually it should create it inside of source folder, inside of audio. And there we can see it's just made a to-do list. And that's created the source folder. Okay. So now we can go ahead and start building it. And it's building it for both Apple Silicon and Intel-based chips, but it's not building it for Windows. I think that would probably take a little bit more finessing, but it's not something that I've looked at yet. And you can see now it's going to create a max help file. And something that I've been getting it to do is just to create a project README for, I guess, humans to read, and a project Claude.md for other instances of Claude to read. So that if we want to come back to this project, it makes it really easy to do. So once it's built the max help, we'll get it to do that. And you'll see in the Max SDK folder, the place where these files get built is just the externals folder. So you can see there we've got a cycle.fold MXO file. And then also it'll create an accompanying cycle.fold max help file. So now I should be able to open up Max 9. Let's try it out. I'll see it is creating a README file already. That's great. See, in the past I would have had to have asked it specifically to create a README file, and now it's just doing it. I'll just cycle max. So it's interesting. It's saying, let's verify our final build one more time to ensure everything is working perfectly. I'm not quite sure how it's able to test the functionality of the external without being inside of Max, but I'd be wrong about that. Maybe it's just making sure it's actually able to work on a Apple Silicon chip. Oh, cool. And it's creating a, oh no, it's not. Okay. All right, I'll ask it to make a project Claude. Oh, you can kind of see it's already added. Up here it's already added. New discoveries. Yep. Okay. Great. Let's try it out while it's doing that. And now we can see a cycle.fold object. Just to be on the safe side, let's just scope it out first before we before we hear it. Have it as a low frequency. You can see it's not quite acting the way that we would expect. So I'll have to do a bit of refinement. So you can see at 1 Hertz. So that space there is -1 to 1, so we're going to have to refine that a bit. And let's just have a look at the max help file that it's made. Wow, it's not that convincing, is it? It's missing the actual object, but it's tried. It's tried. We'd have to probably clean that up a bit. Let's leave that as B. Let's go have a look at the Claude.md file it's made. I mean, it's nice that it's giving itself notes like this, quite detailed notes. And then here's the README file. So the README file is always about usage and maybe a little bit about building the object and information about it. Okay. And this is classic Claude. You're absolutely right. It's the thing about these models, isn't it? They're very agreeable. They're built to be that way. And I feel like Claude is better than ChatGPT in this regard, but it's still not, doesn't push back enough. And in order to load the newest version, what I usually do is, let's just save this. And then we've got a quit max. Let's reopen it again. Okay, that's kind of, at least the warping side of it is getting there, isn't it? But the wave shaping is not there. Ah, see, it did a tanh based approach, which of course is going to get us some nice clipping sounds, sort of, but not wave folding at all. So we want a classic wave folder. So I find sometimes it tries to take a shortcut, or there's been a few times where it's presented me with an emulation of something, or it's faking data, or it's faking an output when it's not actually doing the thing that I'm asking. And in order to try and create something that works, but and that on the surface appears okay, but actually doesn't do what I ask it to do. All right, let's try it now. It's not quite there, is it? All right. Anyway, you get the idea with this process. I'm going to keep finessing this, get it to a point where it's actually working the way that I want it to. But that's the basic idea. So I think it's super cool that we can use tools like Claude to as a way of developing things like this, and it makes this process so much easier than it used to be. But of course, the downside to this, or the flip side to this, is that the planning stage has to be more involved, and the troubleshooting or quality control stage is more involved than if we were doing it manually. I'll include my Claude.md file as a link down below. So check that out if you're interested.